The lobby of Bright Mart Superstore was unusually tense for a Thursday morning. Shoppers shuffled by with carts of cereal and detergent, but near the express checkout, the air buzzed like static. A man in a sharp navy suit, his cufflinks gleaming like tiny mirrors, stood with a credit card pinched between his fingers, glaring at the self-checkout screen as if it had personally betrayed him. The man was Raymond Adler, CEO of Adsel Technologies, a man worth more than most small nations. His presence here was a fluke of circumstance, a sudden craving for black coffee beans before a critical board meeting. He could have sent an assistant, of course, but Adler believed in feeling the ground beneath his shoes once in a while. It reminded him of where he'd started. But right now, that philosophy was unraveling. The machine flashed red, declined. He swore under his breath. His phone was ringing in his pocket. The other executives were already waiting on a video call that would determine the fate of a $200 million merger. And then, softly, a voice broke through his irritation. "Sir, that's the wrong trick." Adler turned. The cashier was barely out of her teens, the kind of face that still carried the fragility of someone learning how to stand tall in the world. Her name tag read, Maya. He nearly snapped at her, but there was something in her tone. Not mocking, not timid, firm, but kind. "You're swiping the chip card like it's still 2008, she said, smiling slightly. "It won't work like that. Try the chip, not the strip." For one insane second, Adler wanted to laugh. He was about to sign a $200 million deal, and here he was, being schooled on payment methods by a cashier making maybe $12 an hour. Still, he followed her advice. Insert, wait, approved. She bagged the coffee beans with quick, practiced hands. See, right trick. Adler opened his mouth to dismiss her with a curt thanks, but stopped. Something flickered in her eyes. Not just the duty of a cashier helping a customer. It was steadiness, a kind of clarity he rarely saw in his own office tower. And then his phone buzzed again. His assistant's voice came through, frantic. "Raymond, where are you? The partners are restless. They want to close the deal now." Maya's quiet war. Maya had started at Bright Mart 3 weeks earlier. It wasn't her dream job. She wanted to study architecture, but her mother's medical bills left no room for tuition. So, mornings were spent at the hospital, afternoons juggling 2 jobs, and evenings collapsing into bed with sketchbooks she barely had time to fill. But even in exhaustion, she carried a habit. She treated every customer like they mattered. Because she knew what it felt like to be invisible. And now, facing this powerful stranger, she felt an odd intuition. He looked lost, not in wealth, not in stature, but in spirit. "Can I give you one more piece of advice?" she asked suddenly, surprising herself as much as him. He raised an eyebrow, impatient. "I don't have time for." "Sometimes," she said softly, "the wrong trick looks easier. Faster. But it never works in the long run. Whether it's swiping a card or running a company." The words hung there, absurdly heavy for a checkout line. For a moment, Adler wanted to brush her off. But something struck. Only yesterday, his legal team had suggested a loophole, one that would push through the merger faster but risk massive layoffs later. The board was leaning toward it. It was the easy trick. And he had almost agreed. But this cashier, with her tired eyes and steel in her voice, had just put it into perspective. The boardroom pressure. Minutes later, Adler sat in the back of his town car, coffee beans on the seat beside him, staring at his phone screen as executives filled the video grid. "Raymond, we've stalled long enough," barked Howard Chen, the lead investor. "Sign the document. Let's close this today. The loophole is legal, efficient. Why are we hesitating?" The others chimed in. Pressure built like a drumbeat. A $200 million deal. Expansion into Europe. Immediate shareholder approval. But in his mind, Adler heard Maya again. That's the wrong trick. He thought of her bagging groceries to pay her mother's bills. Thought of the thousands of Bright Mart employees who lived paycheck to paycheck. And he imagined them under his own company, if he cut corners now. No, Adler said suddenly, his voice echoing across the call. The screen froze. Stunned silence. We're not using the loophole, he continued. We'll close this deal clean. We'll invest in people, not shortcuts. If that costs us time, so be it. I built this company on trust, not tricks. And I'm not throwing that away for speed. Some executives groaned, others shook their heads, but Adler didn't flinch. For once, he felt lighter. The ripple, over the next weeks, news spread. Adsel closed the merger, without loopholes, without layoffs. It took longer, yes. But it earned unprecedented loyalty from employees and partners alike. The press hailed it as a return to human leadership. Stock prices climbed higher than projected. In the quiet aftermath, Adler found himself back at Bright Mart. He walked up to the same checkout line. Maya was there, tired but still wearing that quiet steadiness. You again? She asked, surprised. He placed a bouquet of lilies on the counter. For your mom, he said. And for you. She blinked, startled. You didn't have to. You don't know this, he said, lowering his voice, but you changed the course of a $200 million deal with 6 words. That's the wrong trick. I wanted to thank you. Maya laughed nervously. I was just talking about a credit card. No, Adler said, shaking his head. You were talking about life. And I heard you. He handed her a card. Not a credit card this time. A scholarship program his company had just launched for underprivileged youth in the community. At the top of the list, her name was written. Her knees almost buckled. I don't know what to say. Say you'll keep building, Adler replied gently. For yourself. For your future. For the world you want to see. The challenges behind the curtain. Maya's journey wasn't instantly solved. Architecture school was grueling, and her mother's health remained fragile. She struggled with guilt, torn between studying late and sitting by her mom's hospital bed. Nights of self-doubt crept in. What if I'm not good enough? What if I waste this chance? Adler too faced backlash. Investors questioned his soft decisions. Shareholders demanded explanations. He fought through boardroom storms, often alone. But each time, he reminded himself of that checkout line, of the clarity in a young cashier's words. Both learned resilience the hard way. Maya leaned on small victories, her first design praised by a professor, her mother smiling on better days. Adler leaned on integrity, even when it cost him allies. And slowly, both lives bent toward light. The meeting years later, 5 years passed. A glittering new cultural center opened in the heart of the city, designed by a promising young architect named Maya Lopez. At the grand opening, the mayor praised its sweeping curves and the way it seemed to hold the sky in its arms. Adler was there, of course. Not as CEO this time, but as a mentor, a supporter. When Maya spotted him in the crowd, her eyes filled. After the ceremony, she walked over. Funny, she said, half teasing. All this started with you not knowing how to use a chip reader. No, Adler replied with a smile. It started with you daring to speak truth in the smallest place, too. Someone who seemed untouchable. They stood together, looking up at the building, concrete proof of what happens when integrity meets courage. The message, life is full of wrong tricks, shortcuts that promise speed but steal from the future. They show up in boardrooms, in classrooms, even at a grocery store checkout line. But sometimes, the smallest voice, speaking the simplest truth, can redirect the course of millions of dollars, or millions of lives. So the next time you're faced with an easy way out, remember Maya. Remember Adler. And remember, the wrong trick might work for a moment, but the right choice builds forever.